Okay. So this is our virtual HangTuf virtual Chalk Talks. This evening, we are excited to spotlight Maddy Thrush. We consider her a HangTuf alumni. She's played with HangTuf for 2 years and is coming back this year to play on our 23U team. This whole process and doing the virtual Chalk Talks is about just giving our girls within the organization and even outside the organization the opportunity to listen to players that are, either currently playing college ball or formerly playing college ball, also pro athletes and people that have moved on beyond softball now and that are successful business women to help empower our young ladies and also inspire them to play softball. It's a great opportunity to ask questions at the end of this dialogue and to listen to Maddy's softball journey, just things that you can learn from somebody that's already been through the process. I know that myself starting off, having 2 young girls and not being familiar with the recruiting process, you learn a lot from talking to people that have been through it, or coaches obviously in college, and travel coaches are gaining experience every year as well. So I do encourage you guys to hang on at the end and pepper Maddy with as many questions as tough questions as you can. But as we get through this, I'll just kind of touch on maybe a little intro. Maddy is a very accomplished student athlete from Farwell, Michigan. She got a number of awards, some of them that I wasn't even aware of after coaching her for a couple of years. But the Mary Pitchford Outstanding Senior Student Athlete, the Clare County Kiwanis Scholar Athlete, she was all academic first team, BCAM Outstanding Senior Athlete, first team All-State in 2021, and also an all-star athlete in 2021. She was also on the National Honor Society and valedictorian for Farwell. So obviously she made sure that she got the grades, which is something that we continuously try to reinforce with our student athletes. You have to have good grades if you want to go on and go to college, let alone play college ball. That's where you're going to get a lot of your scholarship money is going to be academically. You really don't get a lot athletically. You do get some, but the important thing is that you got to keep your grades up and then choose a school that you're planning to go to, whether or not something stops you along your journey and you're not able to play softball anymore, that you are at a good school where you're going to get your education and then go out and find a good job. So that's, high priority. So we're going to start off here with Maddy. Maddy, you want to touch on anything with the intro for yourself that maybe I left out you want to highlight?
No, I think you covered most of it.
Yep. You're very athletic, and we'll get into some of that here later too, because being a multi-sport athlete in high school is something that we really want to, put out there and is a positive thing for any of our girls. All right. So starting off, when did you start playing softball or get into softball, Maddy?
So I actually began playing softball and t-ball. I think that's usually where all of us start off, but I didn't start playing actual softball until 10U, and that's when I joined the travel associations.
At 10U? Okay.
Yes.
And who do you think made the biggest impact on you, especially, being young and, inspiring you to play ball?
Well, I felt like I just had a lot of motivation myself to play, but over talking with my family, it was actually one of my brother's ex-girlfriends that brought me to my first softball tryout. And I don't really remember that, but I would say the people that most inspired me to play softball would be Tressa, which is one of my travel coaches, and then Ken, who was one of my club leagues. They took me under their wing at a really young age, and they just made me feel like I had a lot of potential to grow.
Right. That's great. Coaches, parents, like you mentioned, like your boyfriend's girlfriend, had an impact on you.
My brother's ex-girlfriend actually brought me to my first travel ball tryout as a 10U player to the Drillers. And my parents actually had nothing to do with it for a while, apparently, until they realized that I was actually decent. And then they decided to start putting in effort and love to get me to keep going.
Very cool. So with that being said, moving on, you're going through, T-ball, Little League, and so on. What were some of your high school accomplishments, maybe that I didn't touch on, as basically just a softball player, and maybe both individually and as a team? How did you guys do?
Well, coming from a very small school, we didn't have a great pool to pick from for athletes. And it was kind of like we're in that range where you can kind of pick your school where you go to. So I would say some individual accomplishments that I had. I guess I don't really see a lot of individual accomplishments except for like counting home runs and my field goal percentage and my hitting percentage. But just looking back on it, it's not really about like my individual aspects. I would kind of think more of the team. We never got like district champions or anything, but every single year that I played, we ended up being runner up, and it would always be just one thing that would take us down. But I would think an accomplishment that I had is that we would work through anything and we would still try and pull up on top.
You were also a team captain too, correct?
Yes, I was a team captain from freshman all the way to my senior year.
And what do you think are some of the important things of being a team captain?
I would say having to deal with the nitty gritty. So a lot of the coaches don't see all the drama that goes on within a team. They only see whether we perform or whether we don't perform. And so being a captain, you kind of just have to stop everything where it lies, and you have to go out and talk to players if something's bothering them, or if there's a team rift, you just got to go out and figure out what the issues are and try and compromise to fix them.
Yeah, that's very good point. I think it's great to have somebody that's able to motivate, has charisma, energy, keep the team focused on, what the priorities are, like what you were mentioning. And I also think it's a good thing, like we tell some of our girls, that when you go and you play travel ball, you are probably playing with people that have chosen to do something at a higher level, typically when you're playing travel, and that when you're playing in high school, you do get a few girls here and there that maybe they don't have the same priorities as you do. Maybe it's a different sport, or maybe it's not the sport, they're doing it for fun. But I think it's always important the girls play for their high school teams. I don't care, if they're the last place in the league or first place. I think there's something you can get out of it, as well as, being that teammate and a leader on the team.
Yeah, I would definitely say there are a lot of instances where there are different priorities within all the girls there. So it's kind of hard, because you can say that high school, some girls are just there just to be there, and some of them are there to better themselves or just to have friends, or any of those options. But I still think it's kind of abundant in travel ball that they also have those different priorities. And it's very important that you get everyone on the same page and to play as a team rather than just for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. So we talked a little bit about your school starting up and so on. How about travel ball? What was your travel ball experience? What clubs have you played for in the past?
I have played for the Drillers, the Lady Explorers, the Valkyries, and HangTuf. Okay. So I played with the Drillers from 10U to 14U, and then I played with the Lady Explorers from 14U to 18U-ish, and then I played with HangTuf and the Valkyries from 16 to 23U.
Awesome.
So a lot of different teams, but you just have to find the one that makes your fit and I can't say anything because someone's biased in this meeting. So.
How about, if, I always say if it's applicable, but so how has playing for HangTuf impacted you in a positive way, or helped you grow as a player? It's always really nice to have former players that have been in HangTuf that have gone through the same practices, had similar coaches, and knowing that they're going on and they're playing in college. So what would you say, influenced you?
So as you already know, Scott, I actually was first on your team as a pickup player, and that was supposed to be for one tournament. And then that turned into picking up for every tournament that summer. And I would say just from that glimpse until I actually joined the team, just going there and making the connections that I made with some of the girls, like both Alana's and Aaliyah and Maggie and everyone on the team, they just made me feel so welcomed. And it kind of like brought that joy back for me of like being able to play with people that want to be there and people who just love each other and love the game and want to put everything they have into it. And of course, having you as a coach, that was a very big thing, because even to this day, you still check up on me and you still remind me of how great of a player I am and how much I do matter in sports and non-sports. So I would say HangTuf has been a pivotal point, and it has helped me a lot, not just then, but now as well.
Somebody needs to check up on you.
It's nice because having a HangTuf family is, everyone needs that family that they can rely on. And you guys are just a very big support system. And it doesn't matter if you're my coach or not my coach, or you're a 16U coach, everybody just checks up on each other and everybody knows everyone. And they just keep motivating you to keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we're here for. It should be about the girls first all the time. And, one of the things I do appreciate about you as well is that you've always given back to the program too. You've been involved with a lot of our youth clinics in the past, and our 8U team last year. I know the girls loved you at the clinic. And we're looking at getting you involved with a couple of our teams as well this year. So that's a positive thing both ways. It's always good for a player to think about outside the box, how you can impact the world positively, which is what we want every player to have that opportunity to see and learn. But also for our younger girls to have that mentor come and be involved with the program, and it shows them what the possibilities are. Which I think is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Big Sisters program.
Yeah, definitely like a Big Sisters program. I find it's very important to give back to who helped build you up or help anybody build them up. Because HangTuf, I applaud you guys, because I would never grew up with a travel team that ran free clinics or the Rise thing that you guys had today. Like, that's an amazing thing. When I was in high school, I didn't even know what Rise was. I had to do everything myself. And the fact that you're providing girls with a way to get found or to get themselves out there if they want to play college ball is amazing.
Yeah, we appreciate that. Thank you. How about, I know everybody has a different recruiting experience, and that's been one of the things that we've learned a lot from having different guests on. That recruiting process can just vary so much, but it's good to talk to every person and to hear it and see, the ways that you can be discovered. Also, how you carry yourself in front of college coaches or talk to college coaches. I know that you've always been a very good communicator with college coaches. We go to different college exposure events, and it's not unusual for me to see you off to the side, talk to the college coaches, but between games, which is a really good thing. That's how you're gonna develop a relationship. You're gonna ask them to follow you, have those discussions just to say, hey, what's going on? So I wanted to ask you, what were your, what camps and clinics did you attend, when you were looking at finding a college? And then, what was your experience through that process?
So I graduated in 21. So sadly, I was one of the bunch with COVID. So a lot of things were shut down during the recruiting process because usually you get recruited within your junior to senior year, depending on where you go. And coming in and getting a lot of looks from college coaches as a freshman and a sophomore, and then going into junior year, being locked down and not being able to do anything, I really had to rely on the relationships that I made prior to that. So it was very hard because I didn't have many camps that I could go to get recruited, and I just had to rely on travel ball. So I would say my experience was a little tougher than most due to that circumstance. But yeah, it was very rough for me because of COVID.
What are some of the things that you thought were important that when you did talk to college coaches that they, maybe something that stood out to you, like, hey, they noticed this player because they were, they had they were positive in the dugout, positive body language. Can you give us a little bit of maybe the feedback some of the coaches gave to you, or things that you saw that were important for players to how do they carry themselves in order to be noticed?
Right. Yeah. So I would say your attitude and your personality means a lot to coaches. Coaches just don't look for talent and they just don't look for academics. Yeah, it's a huge thing. But if you don't have a good personality or good attributes to yourself, they aren't going to give you the time of day. So for instance, whenever I would go up to college coaches or they would approach me, the one thing that they would all comment on is how I was positive the whole time. I would hustle the whole time, and how I just made the game fun and I didn't make it seem like I was trying to go out for somebody else. So I would definitely say that being positive and just having a smile on your face and enjoying the game and just having the energy to be a great person and a great athlete is what they're looking for.
No, I totally agree with you. And it's something that we try to reinforce and talk to all the girls, especially when they hit 13, that you're going to start being watched, seen. Somebody's watching you in that dugout and how you're interacting with your teammates, coaches, how you, I always thought, me as your coach, I always thought that you had a great attitude and a relationship with the umpires during the game. You knew what you could do, right? You were very positive, and you would talk to the umpires and you would respect them. And I would always get comments after the game, you got to keep that shortstop, where did you find her? And I think a lot of kids, they get so caught up in the game that sometimes, they'll shake their head no, when they strike out. And that's the kind of thing that, will irritate an umpire, your reaction to something in a negative way. You just got to sometimes just brush it off and move on to the next opportunity that you're going to have, and let that go. Otherwise, it could carry and stay with you. And the next time you're up to bat, oh, I remember her. She had a bad attitude. It just, those things do happen. Everybody's human. But I think that's one of your strengths is how you always carried yourself in a positive way. Even when the team got down, you didn't let that affect your demeanor. I know you would be disappointed personally, but I think that created more of a fire and drive for you to get the team and pull them together to, focus on the next thing and to do better. And I think coaches want that, on their teams and in their dugouts. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, you are correct. You may not think that they're watching you in the dugouts, or when you're with your team on the outside just warming up, or when you're just sitting in a circle with your team, when you're with your family after the game. That's when the coaches are watching you. They're not just watching you when you're on the field. They're watching to see how you act when you're off the field, on the field, and anything in between. They could have interactions with you at any point, and they just want to see how you are. And another thing, like how you said, the next opportunity, that's what they want. They don't want you to get down on yourself or cause a scene or disrespect anybody because you're mad at yourself, mad at your player, or mad at the umpire. They want to see you shake it off and go to the next play, because the more that you wallow on something, the more likely that something bad is going to keep happening. And that's a big thing that I've heard from umpires and coaches that I've talked to. They just don't understand how people don't have respect for the game themselves, their players or the umpires or the coaches. That's like a big thing that you need to have, because say for your pitcher, for an example, and you have a really good pitch, but the umpire doesn't call it, and you give the huffy puffy response, the umpires are less likely to give you the calls that you want because they feel like you're disrespecting them. Attitude is a huge thing, and it's a good thing if you do have a good attitude and you do have positivity, because it works for you in the end. Whether you win or whether you don't win, it's a pivotal thing that you're going to need in your life, because it just doesn't fly if you're not going to respect people or yourself or the game.
Want to pick up your teammates, pick up your team, not bring people down.
Right.
And yes, yep, totally agree with you. So after travel ball, you went on to play at Spring Arbor University, and you were their starting shortstop last year. And with that being said, I came and I've watched you play a little bit. I think you led your team in doubles. You had a really good fielding percentage. Let me see here, fielding percentage, and also, it seemed like you didn't really have that much of too much of a difficulty transitioning from high school to college. But I kind of wanted you to touch on, what that transition was like, maybe from high school and travel ball to college. What things did you think, were challenging, and what things do you think came easier to you than you expected?
Well, coming from a high school that didn't take softball very seriously, I would say the transition was pretty nerve-wracking going into college, because going into college, I talked to my coach, Deb, and she was very transparent with me. She told me how much we would practice, when we would practice, where we would practice, and what we would do in between. I would say one of the easiest things for me to do, I would say the team dynamic, just getting to know your teammates, was probably the easiest one, and being able to play as a team and be coherent with them. One of the hardest things was probably getting over how much time that I needed to spend with them. So for example, she had us do morning lifts, team time, and practices. You really just had to get your schedule in order and just be able to mash with them. I wouldn't say that anything was super hard for me on the field. It was the initial getting there and being so nervous that you were putting so much pressure on yourself that you wanted to perform well. And at that point, it was probably within 2 weeks that I was just very nervous, and I would make just the little mistakes because I was putting so much pressure on myself to perform good. But after I got over that initial nervousness, everything came like I was just playing in high school or travel ball.
I'm sure it was, obviously it's different socially. You've got a whole new environment. I know a lot of players talk about time management, kind of like what you were saying. You get your lifts, you got all of these things going on. I know that you're a full-time student, and being a softball player is like having a full-time job. And then you're also trying to work, outside of that. I take it that, time management was probably one of the tougher things to adjust to. How about being away from home, being so far away?
So I would definitely say I did have some homesickness. Going to Spring Arbor was a godsend for me, because when you first get there as a freshman, they fill your schedule to the point where you have no time to think about home, and they try and make a community for you there. So I would say when I did have downtime, I did become homesick, but it was pretty nice because my mom would travel to me, or me and my mom would meet half up, and we could just sit in the car and talk and get food if we were stressed or anything like that. But it was really nice because I could rely on my teammates and my friends and my coach if I did get homesick, and they would just invite me into whatever they were doing to help me.
Yeah, that you were really lucky. Obviously I know your family, and I just know how supportive they are, of you, going to your events, and just how involved they are with you. And I think you're really lucky to have that. That's a good thing. I know a lot of kids, they seem to struggle, and obviously the pressure, either getting the grades or how they're performing athletically, and they tend to have self-doubt, even questioning their value as a person. And that's something that we try to work into Hang Tough, about mental toughness, and that no matter how you are playing at any time, you always have value to the team. We care about you as a person first. And that's something I hear more and more from college coaches now, because the new generation that is now, entering college, COVID has had a major negative impact, whether anybody really likes to admit it or not, or maybe it kind of spotlights the issues that were really out there that are now more noticeable and talked about, just about, anxiety, depression, any of those things. And we just want to make sure that all of our girls know that it's, softball should be your safe place. It should be the place where you're here to have fun. And again, I know that you're social, which is a good thing for you. Some girls don't have that to fall back on. They're a little less social, so they might feel a little more isolated in that situation.
Right.
But
I would definitely say my family is a big supporting factor, and thankfully I do have an amazing support system. And I definitely agree on softball in that aspect of your performance shouldn't define who you are or how your attitude is. And I am one of those people that fell into that, is like your performance does affect whether you have value or not. And one thing our Spring Arbor softball team, our captains, our teammates, and our coaches, they all preach is softball is not your identity. You should not make your identity in softball. It should be a part of you, but it shouldn't be your determining factor, which is a great thing for Spring Arbor. And every year it's brought up over and over again. And I find that really lifting, because everyone does come out with their issues, and you have to be able to support your teammates if they are having a rough time in that aspect.
Yeah, that's really refreshing to hear that.
Yeah.
That they're doing that with you guys. How about, do you do any mental toughness, like discussions, read any books and talk about it as a group, or do some type of, I guess it would be kind of like a team exercise to help build that camaraderie?
Yes. If Deb was here, she would be able to preach about this. So actually, coming into my freshman year, my coach, Deb, she actually sent us books to read before we got to campus. And so every year she picks out a book, or maybe two books, depending on when. But I think we usually get one in the fall, and we usually get one in the spring. And so she has a book, and we all read it, and then we come together and we just talk about the book, or we all present on different chapters and how it can translate into our life and how we feel and all of these things. And coach does preach mental stability, and that's a really nice thing. And it's also not even our coach, our team captains, when we're not even with our coaches, we come together and we have group time, and we do talk about these things and how we can become tougher and all these things. Coming from a Christian college, it is very refreshing, because they do care about our mental health and like being mentally strong in order to play. And I would guess all of our meetings have to deal with our mental toughness.
Okay. That's good to know. I mean, it sounds like it's consistent, kind of with the direction that a lot of college coaches are starting to take, which I do appreciate that, Spring Arbor University is a Christian college too. I went to a Christian college, which you just, like you were saying, when you're picking out where you want to go, it's nice that you have your checklist, and, it being a Christian college is a plus, in your category, depending on, it's different for everyone that's out there looking for it, but I can definitely appreciate the, that perspective on things.
Our coach actually every week we have a meeting with our team, and this week it's Tuesday. So we have meetings every Tuesday. And she actually gives out like worksheets for us to fill out, not just to consume our time, but to make us actually think and value ourselves. So she actually gave us one that it was labeled David and Goliath. And so basically we had to point out our 3 rocks. So basically like 3 of our strengths, and then our Goliath is what we needed to get over. And just being able to write this down and be able to value ourselves and know that we can overcome our Goliath was very heartwarming for me, because she takes into account that everybody does have issues, but we have qualities that can help us get over those.
Awesome. That is pretty cool. One of the analogies I've heard from like Jackie Joseph from Michigan State, she talks about you're either the bug or you're the windshield. And so you get to determine and choose, where you're at and how you deal with things. And you're either trying to improve and do better, or you're that bug that's out there that's just going to splatter all over that windshield. So, but yeah, that's pretty cool. So what would you say your college playing experience has been like? I know you had an entire season last year, and technically you were a freshman last year, correct?
Yes. So I'm technically a sophomore on the field this year, but a junior academically.
Yep. And that's because you had we were talking about this the other day. You were able to get a lot of college credits while you were in high school, which is something that's happening more and more for students in high school, that they can pick up some of those AP courses or whatnot that are the equivalent to credits that can be transferred into college. So that's, you're ahead of the game there. And that hasn't lightened your load though, correct? So far with your academics?
So I came in with 33 credits as a freshman. So technically I became a sophomore as soon as I stepped onto Spring Arbor campus. I would say that my load has been kind of jam-packed, but it's also because I picked up another minor. So I just added something to my major. So I'm a major in health and exercise science, but I'm also a psychology minor. And if I didn't add the psychology minor, then I would have probably only had 12 credits a semester. But right now I'm riding around the 14, 15, which is still pretty manageable.
Oh. Yeah, that's definitely a full load for sure. So what can you talk to us about your experience playing last year? Because you went through that whole thing, fall season. I know that you had a fall season this year too, but then you also worked out with the team in the winter months. And then you went on, typically a lot of the college students go down to some of the southern states to play, typically towards the end of February. And then you had a full season in the spring. Can you kind of walk us through maybe like some of the things that affected you and in just regards to the schedule and expectations now that you have a year under your belt?
Yeah, so last year we began our spring going down to Florida between the end of February to early March, and we played around 10, 12 games in Florida for a week and a half. And that was really refreshing to be able to go there and just play for fun, and coach put everybody in and let everyone play just to figure out how we can play together as a team before jumping right into the spring season. And then after we got back, we probably had 2 days, and then we started our regular season. It was very hard coming from playing in 80, 90, 100 degrees in Florida to there's snow on the ground in Michigan. So although it was really fun being able to go out and play, the dynamics between the Florida conditions and the Michigan conditions were very hard. So I'm kind of expecting that again this year, for it to be a drastic change in how the ball works or a bat works or even how our body works. And one hard thing during the spring was how the games would be canceled and rescheduled countless times due to the weather or people getting sick because of COVID and anything of the sort. And so that was very hard to handle because you would have your schedule set out for one thing, but then it'd be a totally different thing. And it was kind of the same when we even got to we got to the early May when we had our conference tournament. Our conference tournament actually got rained out for 3 days. And so we had an extra 3 days at our conference tournament and we had 3 full days where we didn't even play. So we played our first 2 games, and then we got to where we were supposed to play our 3rd game, and it ended up getting rained out for 3 days. And so having just to sit down and just be able to comprehend how we only have 2 more days left to be playing, and you had no idea what the conditions were going to be like. So that was kind of nerve-wracking as well. But I kind of expect this year to be mostly the same because we are going back to Florida to play. But before we go to Florida, we're actually having another tournament before, and that'll be interesting because it's going to be cold again. So just having to go from the cold to warm to cold is probably the hardest thing that I had to endure.
How about your, I take it you either had an academic advisor that you're working with, helping you schedule classes, for whatever would be in the best interest for the spring semester. But I take it you have a tutor that goes with the team as well, or is that somebody that's just available to you? Or do they actually travel with you guys to each of these games and tournaments?
So everyone is assigned an academic advisor determines on what your major is. So some girls could have one professor and another girls could have another professor, but they don't reach out to you until you're kind of struggling with your grades. But it's mostly, I would say, we don't have a tutor. You can sign up for a tutor. Spring Arbor doesn't just assign a tutor to the softball team. You kind of have to go out and get your own tutor. But I would say in the aspect of who's keeping us accountable while we're on our trips, it would be our team captain and our coach, because our coach actually emails every single one of our professors almost every single week and gets feedback from all of our professors. And she keeps us in line with every single meeting that we have with her.
Well, that's great. She's there to help support you guys in that way. I know a lot of, maybe some of the larger schools, I know that they have a tutor, that somebody that can actually, or say it's a supplemental instructor that can come with the team, and or you can schedule it out. And I've heard more than once that I wish I would have scheduled that, and thought about having that extra support before the season got underway, because things kind of got away from me for a little bit. But I know that you're obviously, you were a really good student in high school, so I'm sure that once you got the time management thing under your belt, that you didn't need to learn how to study. Sometimes kids don't test well in high school just because they didn't go through a process of somebody actually teaching them how to study, how to get prepared for things. So
I would definitely advise relying on the upperclassmen that are in your major, or upperclassmen that's taken the classes that you've taken, because they can give you very helpful insight on what you should expect, what you should do, and tactics that you should implement into your studying. Because that was very pivotal in my freshman year, because there were probably 4 other health and exercise science majors that were leaving as seniors, and they had tremendous amounts of insight of what I could add to my schedule.
Yeah, that's a great recommendation to ask and get that information, help lead you and guide you along your way. So when you were going through high school and you were trying to decide on a college, what made you choose Spring Arbor? Were there a few other colleges that you were considering as well?
Yeah, there was a few other colleges that I was considering, but Spring Arbor was the only one I was seriously considering going to. And I would say the main reason I chose Spring Arbor was due to my interactions with our main coach, Coach Deb, and then our assistant coach at the time, Coach Craig. They just made everything seem homey, and they already made me feel like I was a part of the team in that aspect. She traveled me to every tournament for almost my first summer that she was courting me. She traveled me for every tournament. And then after I even signed, she came to all of my tournaments as well. So I would definitely say you have to have a good relationship with the coach that you're talking to, because you don't want to be uncomfortable with that person for the next 4 years, 2 years of your life.
With that being said, that you were obviously communicating with her, were you also like emailing with her and telling her obviously what your schedule was coming up, and communicated all that as well?
Yes. So my first interaction was actually with our assistant coach, Coach Craig. And then he relayed the message to Coach Deb. And then after I met her for the first time and I got all of her information, I let her know what other tournaments I was playing in, what was my schedule and all this. I would say the main thing that you want to do is get their information and make sure that they know where you're going to be that weekend, what team you're playing on, because from there they can kind of just figure out what time or what field you are going to be on if they don't have like a set schedule for your tournament yet.
Okay. No, that's definitely important. So we're coming down to the last couple of questions here, and then we're going to open it up for everybody. And this isn't, just, I don't think anybody actually thinks it, but this isn't rehearsed. And I know that Maddy was nervous coming into this today, but she's done a great job. You're doing really well. What are your plans for the future? I know that you're, health and exercise science, and we've talked too about, interning this summer, finding a job kind of like in your, not only a good paying job, but finding something that's in your field that you can benefit in the long run from that experience. But I guess, is softball in the picture at all? I know that we kind of talked about maybe getting you involved in coaching, at a travel ball level, but what are your thoughts on softball moving forward? And what are your big plans for the future?
So my plan for after graduating from Spring Arbor is going to attend hopefully CMU or any other big schools that have an exercise physiologist major. So if I got the chance to play as a grad student in softball, I would love to play on another college level for going for my grad program. It is possible, but you have to reach out pretty fast in order to get those scholarships insured. So yes, I do want a future in softball if I am offered it in my next college, because I'm going for a master's. I want to end up in the cardiac rehabilitation field with my health and exercise major, and then my master's in exercise physiologist. But I do see myself working with travel balls, whether it just be clinics or actually coaching. There's not much that I would be able to go to other than playing my college in my master's, but I definitely see myself coaching in the future, whether it be right after I graduate or a couple years after I graduate.
Oh, very cool. Great answers. And it sounds like you're really focused. You know exactly, where you're going, what you want to do, which is great. It's good for you. Obviously, you're a planner, and you like to have things laid out and know what's going to happen in the future. I know that comes a little easier to some people than others, but it's good that you have your goal set and the direction that you're going. So that's great to hear. So this is the time that I'm gonna open it up for questions. We have about 10 minutes left, and you guys can either put it in the chat box on here, or you guys can just ask Maddy direct, and that's fine too. Macy, you wanna get started?
Yeah. So my question was, what are your goals when you're warming up for a game?
Would you say that one more time?
What are your goals when you're warming up for a game?
So my goals for working up for a game, I would definitely say you want to stretch out very, very well. So like that's obviously just a guideline that you have to do. You do not want to get injured. I've been injured so many times, but being mentally focused is also another thing. It's okay to like have fun with your teammates and all that other stuff, but you want to be mentally locked in on the game and know what your job is going to have to be. And I would say just make sure that you get all those jittery feelings out while you're warming up. So if you do feel like something's not working or something's not clicking, work on that and make sure that you can try and figure that out before you get out on the field.
Thank you.
Good question. Do we have another question out there?
I do.
Oh, Lord.
Oh. I'm trying to figure out how to use this thing.
Turn on the camera, Mom.
So
right.
Mom, before you get started, I know Ricky put on here that, he's Maddie's biggest fan. So I just wanted to let you know.
Well, Ricky and I might have to see who decides that factor this summer when we play a game of cornhole. So.
Yep.
Or who can sing better at karaoke. But
what's the question?
I do have a question. So you signed on with college, obviously, as a shortstop. What are your feelings for these girls that are coming in that are a younger age group about learning more than one position?
So I would say it's an amazing opportunity and a great idea to go out and not only just focus on one position. If you have the opportunity, go for another position, go for a second position, go for a third position, because you never know when the opportunity can arise and you can take that starting position.
Okay, so you're saying that it is good to have a backup position or to learn more than one position?
Yes, it is amazing to have more than one position. Like, for example, for me, I am a shortstop, but then I can also play second, third, and outfield. So if somebody gets injured and that position needs to be filled, you can just go on over and fill the gap.
You also catch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep,
Claire Gibbs said, did you have any doubts when you were playing? So could you clarify that for me, Claire?
Like when before or after a game, did you have any when if you were going to do something, or were you thinking ever how would you like not do the stress?
Like, how did I relieve my stress when I was playing? Like if I doubted myself?
Yeah, I think so. Her connection's not great, but yes, I think that was it.
Okay. I would say it is healthy and it is common to have doubts, whether you're playing or not. You can be nervous and you can be stressful. Everyone does have doubts and they do have stress, but don't let that consume you, because you are an amazing player and you can do your job and you're on the field and playing for a reason. Everyone else has confidence in you, so you should have confidence in yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So just to touch on what your mom was talking about before too, whenever you're in a game and somebody asks, says, hey, can you run bases? The answer is always yes. Can you play in the infield? Sure. In the outfield, you always want to tell your coach that you're willing and able to do any of these things, so that way you get an opportunity to showcase yourself. I know at HangTuf, we always want to have every girl playing at least 2 positions. Some girls are playing 3. And it just kind of depends on your talent level and what you kind of gravitate to. But, Maddie's 100% right. I can't tell you how many girls go from high school playing one position and they play an entirely different position when they get to college.
Yep.
Saginaw Valley State University, they had a coach there for a number of years. And he told me that he only recruits shortstops, catchers, and pitchers. And he says, and everywhere else, that's where all my shortstops play. They just put them. Yep, they're looking for athletic individuals. So
that's not the only coach with that philosophy. That is very common, that they will go out and recruit the best shortstops on the team, on any team, because shortstops are, they believe, athletic and they can play any position that they can. Like, for example, I'm a shortstop, but I can also play second, third, first, and outfield. And I personally catch as well. The only position I can't play is pitcher. So it is very important that you get out there and you can show them that you play more than one position, because a college coach, if they are recruiting you, you go up to them and say, hey, what position are you looking for? And what position are you trying to fill? Or which position would you like me to play? Because if they can see that you can play that position in other positions, you just become more valuable to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hi, my name's Hadley and I play for 8U. I was wondering, what do you eat before games?
So this is a bad habit of mine. Yes, I eat before games. It is fine to eat before games. Just don't eat too much to where you feel sick or it's weighing you down. So for example, at Spring Arbor, teammate's parent brings Uncrustables into the dugout and they give us like an Uncrustable between the games. So if you do eat, just don't eat too much. It's good to eat food like fruit and vegetables, because that's not only food, but it also has water value as well.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Next question. I'll ask a question for Chris only. He might be tied up right now, but Chris always asks every guest, looking back on it now, say, obviously this is your sophomore year. What things would you say to somebody that might be, say 13 years old? The things that they should do, or if you were talking to your 13-year-old self, what would you tell them in like recommendations?
I would say, I have a lot of things for that. I would tell myself a lot of things. I would say go out and practice more, or if somebody gives you the opportunity to go out and practice, or they offer like, hey, you want to go hit balls after school, or your dad says, hey, let's go practice some more, let's go play catch, do it, because that's just bettering yourself in the future. And now I look back on it and I did not practice as much as I should have. And if I would have practiced more, I would have been a better player overall. And not only is that valuable to yourself, but say it's your parents that are trying to practice with you, it just builds those relationships even more. I would also say don't disrespect your coach. Like, always have a good attitude and be respectful to anybody.
Amen.
Peyton is, how do you overcome a coach who puts you down or doesn't think you're good enough, or they compare you to former athletes? So overall, I would the saying, kill them with kindness. You just want to be respectful and you want to be kind because you want to be the bigger person. You don't want to stoop down to their level. If it does get to the point where it's that bad, reach out to your parents or reach out to any support system that you have, whether it be, say you're in high school or you're in college and this coach is still doing that. It's harder in high school because you can't escape them. But go talk to your AD or go talk to your principal, talk to your parents, try and have a civil conversation with them and another adult. So that's kind of like the thing in high school, is that it's not really your choice to be there. You have to be there. So I would say don't let them define who you are or how you play, because in the end, there are people that believe in you and who are confident in you, but do not stoop down to their level.
Yeah. And I think it's important too that, sometimes coaches don't, I would say that not every coach is a people person. So sometimes they're coaching because they love the sport, but maybe they're not as good communicating, or maybe they come off a little harsh. But criticism sometimes, is geared towards trying to help you. So try to look at it from that perspective too, and then talk to the coach about it. Tell them how you feel or how it makes you feel, and ways that you can do better. Kind of put them on the spot. They need to be able to provide positive input and give you some constructive measures in order to improve. And that's all you can do. And like Maddy said, you got to believe in yourself at all times. So even if a coach says that you got to work on X, Y, and Z, or maybe you're not good enough this year to play in the infield, that's not your role. it doesn't mean that you have to give up, the dream that you have of playing, say, shortstop or whatever it may be. You just got to work a little harder at it. And I know that, this generation's a little bit different than years past. Things continue to evolve. And I think coaches need to try to be more supportive and kind of pick you up with positivity and be constructive in the way that they're interacting with players. I know that that's not always the case. So.
Yep. Personally, when I was younger, I've had these experiences with coaches. And the one piece of advice I could give you is reach out to other people, because sometimes you can't stand up for yourself because you are a player, and it would look disrespectful to your coach if you did stand up. And thankfully, I have very supportive parents that helped me through this process. And I did have to leave the team to go to a different team because of this. But don't feel like you have to bear it yourself. Reach out to other people, because they can help you with your mental health and your confidence, and they can just help you get out of this situation.
Okay. Any other questions for Maddy?
Hey, Maddy, it's Rick.
Hey,
thank you so much. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the girls. Now, going back to the 2022 season, do you wish you took more time practicing on cornhole so Coach Rick wouldn't carry you throughout the season?
Oh, okay. I think you might be a little drunk or confused, but I'm pretty sure it was you who need to practice more, because I'm pretty sure me and Alana are undefeated. But since you say that, yeah, I will have to start practicing more so I can make sure that my undefeated record stands up. There's not a time I need to be practicing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Good luck this season, kiddo.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. If not, again, Maddy, we really appreciate your time and coming on. I know that we had another guest scheduled and something came up for them, but you were always on, our radar here to get you, as a guest for our Chalk Talks. And I'm so happy that it worked out, both with your schedule and your willingness to do it. Looking forward to having you back this year with our 23U team and getting you up to Baseball Kingdom with us to work with a couple of our youth teams this year. So again, we appreciate your time and looking forward to seeing how you do this year at Spring Arbor. We'll be cheering for you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, everybody, that concludes our Chalk Talks for tonight. And have a nice evening. Yep, good night.
Thank you, Scott.
Yep,
Thanks, Maddy.